Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everyone who's here. It looks like we have almost about 150 participants to this webinar today. And my name is Rob Glass. I'm the superintendent here in Eastchester School District. And it's my honor to introduce to you some panelists who are here. We have with us to help moderate and host Cheryl Smith, out of our Board of Education, Rob Summer of our Board of Education, Sally Veltiti, our Board of Education President, Judah Holstein, and Vito Catania, all on our board. And our featured presenter today is Scott Wynn, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And the topic of today's webinar is, it's a forum on hybrid learning, teaching and learning in the hybrid model. For those of you who tuned in yesterday, you know that we had a situation in which we lost power halfway through. Today, about 40 minutes before the start of this session, we had a similar event wherein we lost fiber optic connection in some way. So I'm operating from a hotspot that has battery backup. Scott Wynn quickly got in his car and drove home where he had reliable access. And I think we're actually going to be able to get through a session, knock on wood. So here we go, we're excited. And just a couple of things. We've received questions in advance, and Mr. Wynn has taken over 200 of those questions, all of them, and built them into a presentation and a PowerPoint that he's going to go through with you. And he's organized those by theme, and he'll cover most of the things that were asked. There's a chat feature here on the webinar that you can use to submit questions during the discussion. And the moderators here will review those and will help feed those to Scott to answer. And I'll jump in if there's something that I can answer. Also, if you weren't aware that these sessions are being recorded, this is being recorded. It will be posted on our website. Yesterday's webinar is posted on our website already, and this one will be later today. And our website, our new website is www.eufsdk12.org. So that's our new website. If you Google or search engine Eastchester Schools, you may get the old website. So you want to use that new address, eufsdk12.org. And so I think that about covers it. We're going to jump right in. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Glass, and welcome to everyone attending. Dr. Glass started by saying there's about 150 participants. We're up to 344, 345. So this is a great turnout, and we appreciate all parents joining us and community members in order to learn a little bit more about the plans that we have for September. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I sent out a draft of this presentation earlier today to all of our parents. So hopefully you were able to see it ahead of time, but we will go through it slide by slide to provide some more explanation on each of the different pieces of the model that we have planned out so far. So let me share my screen with you. And let's present. All right, so let's jump right in. So obviously we're speaking about teaching and learning and the plans that we have for our September opening that's coming very quickly to bring all of our students back in some way, shape, or form, hopefully. So looking at the overall picture, going into this process, we approached the planning for September with a couple of guiding objectives. One being that we wanted to maintain the continuity of instruction. We want to be able to provide a robust and engaging curriculum for our students that is going to move us forward and move our students forward in terms of their learning. Second, obviously, being keeping our students safe and healthy, and our staff as well. This is of utmost importance to us, making sure that we are doing everything in our power to make sure that while we are providing instruction, we are also making sure that everyone is safe and healthy. We want to be able to ensure equity and access for all of our students. All of our students come to us with different needs, and we want to be able to make sure that we are providing to the best extent possible that we can the best access that we can to the educational process for them. And part of what we're doing today is part of our fourth guiding objective, which is being able to communicate with all of our community stakeholders to the best extent possible that we can. So as Dr. Glass said, I used a lot of the questions that came in order to create this presentation. And I thank all of our parents for sending the questions in. And one of the questions that came up was the consideration of what we took into account when designing the model that we currently are looking at. And I can tell you that we did an exhaustive, truly robust design process to look at as many different models that we possibly could. And I hope that people understand that there are a lot of constraints that do exist within being able to plan for a model like this. And one of them being space, staffing, our transportation needs, funding that exists, all the requirements that exist in terms of social distancing that the state education department is laying out, as well as the Department of Health and the governor's office. So there are a number of constraints that have been placed on our ability to offer the most robust model that we can. Some of the other considerations that we took into place when we were designing the model, we looked at as many different things as we could. We looked at things like developing individual work areas for students using polycarbonate shielding. We looked at the possibility of keeping our older students home while bringing all of our elementary students back and spreading them out over the course of the district. We considered outdoor classrooms and tents and non-permanent structures that we could host our students in. We looked at the possibility of the AM/PM rotation for different groups. And those are just a small number of models that we considered. But there are truly a number of things that we did look at to see what was feasible and what was able to be offered in terms of the extent that we could. With that being said, there's been a lot of discussion around what other school districts are doing. And I know this is a popular discussion. And what I can tell you is that myself, Dr. Glass, all of our principals, all of our administrative team have been in constant contact with all of our neighboring districts throughout the planning process. I can say that I've spoken to nearly every assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction in the region pretty much on a weekly basis, trying to see what their plans were, what ideas had come up from the region. But I think what people need to realize is that there are a lot of different factors that allow and prevent districts from doing things within their own given model. Our district is very different in many ways than some of our neighboring districts. When we look at Tuckahoe and Bronxville and Scarsdale, we are all, while we have many similarities, many of the aspects of what goes on are quite different. And what's possible in one doesn't automatically translate into another. So we've spent a lot of time looking at the different ideas that have come through and tried to fit what was best for our students in the constraints that we are currently operating under. So that being said, our focus now has turned on making sure that we're trying to provide the most engaging instruction possible for our students within the model that we've designed. One of the other questions that's come up is this idea of instructional gaps, which is 100% valid. With the situation that we encountered in the spring, our teachers and our administrators did the best that they could to provide an appropriate education for our students. But it is the possibility that instructional gaps did develop due to that closure. So when we look at that, we've been working with teachers from K through 12. We spent a lot of time in the spring. Teachers have been working during the summer to really identify what those gaps may possibly be. And we're looking at the prioritization of learning standards, the key understandings and skills to make sure that at every grade level, we're truly covering what is absolutely essential to make sure our students have learned what they need to learn. In terms of assessing student learning gaps throughout this school year, Starting from the very beginning, we're going to be using formative assessments. We're going to be looking at how students are learning, what are those levels of understanding in each of their subject areas, to make sure that as we design units and as we design lessons, that we are really targeting the best possible learning that we could and being able to fill in any learning gaps that might already exist. So that is one of the big things that we're going to be focusing on as we come back and as we're designing instruction for our students within the model that we're looking at. So this is something that was in our plan. So this is the overall arching kind of levels of instruction that we are presenting as the ways in which we will provide instruction to the district throughout the course of the year. We've got our level green, which is our in-person learning, level yellow at our hybrid learning, and our level red at our remote learning level. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump into each one of these models, and we're going to be able to provide some additional information, much more in depth than what was originally in the plan, but we will try to address this to the best possible level that we can. Please understand that we're looking at this from the district perspective. As Dr. Glass mentioned, we have many upcoming webinars and meetings such as this. Each individual building will be hosting one, where they'll be diving into a lot of the specifics that might be building level as opposed to district level. So let's begin with probably the easiest one to look at, and that's level green, which we're all hoping to be able to return to at some point when we feel that things are safe. This level is most closely related to school before our closure due to COVID-19. This is the level where all students will be in school on a daily basis. And we do have to contend with the fact that there may be changes to that structure based upon whatever guidance does exist at that time. So we will be relying on all of the guidance from our state education department, the Department of Health, and the governor's office to determine when it is going to be appropriate for us to return to this level green. So this is something that we're aspiring to and hoping to be back at, hopefully within this school year. That is definitely my hope. We're going to spend a lot of time here at the level yellow because this is the level that we're intending on beginning the school year at. And this is our hybrid model. So within the hybrid model, we're essentially running 3 different kind of schools within a school. We have a combination of in-person and remote digital experiences going on. We've split our students by alphabet into A through L and M through Z, creating 2 different cohorts. The reason for this is due to social distancing requirements, being able to have the right number of students within a classroom at any given time. So our cohort A students, our A through L students, will meet in person in school on Mondays and Thursdays. And our cohort B students, our students M through Z, will meet in person on Tuesdays and Fridays. Wednesday will be a remote day for all students. We received some questions about why we chose the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday split. There are other districts that are doing a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday split, and we understand that. And what we thought was that this model actually works better because instead of, if you have a student who comes on Monday and Tuesday, the next time that they're live in front of their teacher is not till the following Monday. That's 5 days. We thought that was a long time. So looking at this model, Monday, Thursday, when a student leaves on Thursday, the next time they'll see their teacher again is back on Monday, which is really only 3 days. We felt that that split met the needs of our students in a better way than the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday split. We also have the opportunity for our students who are opting out of in-person instruction for full remote instruction. This is something that we believe in and that we are offering. And we are hopeful that we are able to do that in a real positive way to make sure that all of our students are getting the positive instruction that they need. So diving a little bit more into that. So based upon a hybrid model, The way that we're working with our teachers is that we've developed an instructional design philosophy, which has been a discussion amongst a number of our districts, where in order to provide a really solid hybrid experience, that we are designing all of our lessons to be engaging remote learning experiences. And that when students are live in front of us, that is an enhancement. That's an opportunity for us to take that and to do even more with it. But we want to set the stage to make sure that all of our students, if they are remote, are receiving an engaging lesson that they can participate in. This really promotes that engaging instructional experience for all of our students. And we are not going to be recording our simulcast instruction. We are treating this, we heard from many parents through our surveys, through our feedback from last year, that we really want to see as much live instruction as possible. And we've decided that our simulcast instruction will not be recorded. We want our students to attend as if they were in school, whether they are sitting in front of the teacher or they are home. There we go. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look at what this looks like for our different models. So within our hybrid model, we have our cohorted elementary students. These are students that are coming either Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday. So on these days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, our in-person students are following their normal daily schedule. They'll come into school, our teachers will be teaching just as if they would be in a normal situation. Our remote students are live streaming in from home, and they're going to be joining their class for morning meeting, for ELA, for math, and for some of their special area classes. When they're not doing that, teachers will be providing, like we said, we're designing for remote instruction. So we're going to be having students work on assignments when they're home as well, either that have been provided in class the day before or through their Google Classroom. On Wednesdays, when everybody is remote, we will still be doing a meeting, a live meeting with our students from 8:30 to 9. They'll all have morning meeting as anticipated. And then from 9 to 10:30, we'll be rotating small group instruction during that time. And we're figuring it's probably going to end up being 2 to 3 groups per day, per Wednesday, based on need. So if your child is struggling, if the teacher has identified that they want to work with your child, they will assign them to one of those groups and schedule time to meet with them so that they can bring their instructional level even higher. And the remainder of that day will be a continuation of assignments that have been assigned by the teacher, whether it be live and continuing on or through Google Classroom. So let's take a look now. We have our students during the hybrid, our elementary students that are fully remote. And we have decided that we are dedicating teachers specifically to this model. So we will be, depending upon the number of students that opt into this model, we will be collapsing some sections, whether it's 1, 2, however many we need to, within each grade level. So each grade level will have at least one fully remote teacher who will be responsible for all the instruction for our fully remote students. And while each schedule may be slightly different, similar to the schedule that may be different in the live model, we have set these parameters that will be important to note. We're going to require a morning meeting, an ELA block, a math block. There will be a lunch break. There will be time for science and social studies, and there'll be a closing meeting at the end of the day where students can come back together. Special area classes, services, they will all take place as scheduled. So once we have designed and selected the teacher and figured out who's going to be in this remote model, we will design a specific time schedule for all of these things so that there is a consistent basis, the same way that there would be in a classroom that is live. So let's take a look at our secondary schedule. Here's the hybrid schedule. So on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at our secondary school for our middle school and high school, students will be following their schedule either from in school or from home. The students at home are watching the instruction. We're going to be live streaming that instruction directly to their homes, and they will participate through Google Classroom. Students will not necessarily be participating with the teacher during the instruction, because the teacher will be working with the students that are in front of them, but they will be interacting through the instruction through the Google Classroom to make sure that they are engaged. Homework, a question came up about homework. Homework will be assigned at a teacher's discretion, depending upon the level, depending upon the grade level, depending upon the developmental appropriateness. Teachers will be working with students to make sure that the homework is appropriate. On Wednesdays, Wednesdays will be an opportunity for our students that are in a hybrid model to be working independently on assignments, while our teachers are working with our students that are remote full-time. So from 8 to 10:30 on Wednesdays, our students that are remote will be scheduling time with their teachers through office hours to be able to ask questions, to receive extra help, to clarify any things that come up that they're unsure of, and that will happen live, so that teachers can work with students directly. That may happen one-on-one, it may happen in small groups, it may happen in a variety of different ways to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students that are working within the remote model. So a lot of questions have come up about lunch. And I'm not sure that lunch is necessarily curriculum and instruction related, but we thought it was important to be able to begin to provide some additional information about lunch today, so that parents have this information in order to make some informed decisions about their choice. So at the elementary level, all of our students will be eating their lunches in the classrooms. We won't be utilizing the cafeterias at the elementary level. Our Waverly lunch service will begin on November 1, whereas Ann Hutch Greenvale will begin on September 10. In the morning, students, if they have a desire to buy lunch that day, they'll order a package to go lunch, and that lunch will either be delivered to the classroom, or it will be, classrooms will be called down to the cafeteria to pick up their package to go lunch. At the secondary level, it'll be slightly different. Students will be eating in the cafeteria. We're going to make sure that they are spaced out, socially distanced apart. We might be utilizing other large group spaces. For instance, in the high school, we may be using one of the gyms as well. I know the middle school is hoping to be able to utilize outside, allow our students, when the weather's nice, to be able to eat outside on the bleachers or in a different area. But we will be making sure that all of this time, our students are going to be socially distanced, that they're going to ensure the 6 feet to make sure that our students are safe. Students will not be wearing masks when they're eating, but we are going to expect that they are wearing them at all other times. Recess. Recess at the elementary school. A lot of questions about recess. Recess will be taking place. We will have daily recess for all of our students at the elementary level. It's going to look a little bit different, but it is something that we are working on plans to see how we can best do it. May look slightly different at each of our elementary schools because we have different space availability there and the ability to clean surfaces and equipment in order for our students to have an enjoyable an enjoyable time, but also to be safe. We're looking at things like assigning different areas of the field for cohorts of students to play in, rotation through playground equipment if possible, if we're able to clean it appropriately. We're looking at the possibility of organizing games that meet social distancing requirements, but we want to be able to give students choice. And that was part of a meeting that we held today where our principals were really looking and working with our new director of phys ed to be able to look at what choices we can provide students that would be safe during this time. Lunch is going to be a time for a mask break that we'll have throughout the day, but we want to make sure that, again, that's done in a socially distanced way. So we're designing areas for students to have mask breaks during that time. And as I said, our lunch supervisors and recess supervisors are going to work with students on a daily basis to make sure that we're following all of those safety protocols and guidelines. Keep jumping on me. So level red. Level red is the point where we have reached a time when we need to close. That may be an individual building, it may be the whole district, dependent upon the levels of COVID and the levels of spread. So looking at, did I miss this slide? I did. So we would have a blend of synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences. This learning would happen Monday through Friday if we went to level red. And essentially the large scale picture here would that we'd have all students following an abbreviated daily schedule that reflects their developmental readiness. So let's jump in and look a little bit at what that means. So at the elementary level, again, we're looking at trying to provide all of the different pieces of an elementary day. So this is a sample schedule. Please understand this is not the actual time that or order that these things may happen in, but this is just a general sense of what the students would be experiencing on a daily basis. Each class may be slightly different, but we would have morning meeting, the ELA and math blocks, a science and social studies block, a closing meeting, and we would be doing that during the morning time, and then we would be doing special area classes and services in the afternoon. Please know that all of our teachers K-12 will be required to have and use a Google Classroom and a Google Site as their primary learning platform. Okay, so we have streamlined that. We heard that loud and clear in terms of the feedback from parents from the spring, and our teachers are now going to have a Google Classroom that will be used as their learning platform. At the secondary level, we will be running a full day. We'll be running abbreviated periods, 25-minute periods with 5 minutes in between. So as you can see, we have our basic day running from 8 to 12:25. We've got a lunch break built in for our students. And then in the afternoon from 1:30 to 2:30, our teachers would be available for office hours for our students to provide extra help, to provide additional support, clarification, whatever needs might need to be met for our students based upon the learning that took place. And again, all of our teachers, K-12, will be using Google Classroom, Google Sites as their primary learning platform to provide a streamlined approach for our information. A couple of things that are important to note. State is requiring that we take attendance every single day for all of our students. So doesn't matter if the student is in person, if they're in the cohort model and just not in that day, or if they're in the full remote model, we are required to take attendance for our students every single day. It will be our expectation that we see our students every single day. So we'll be working to develop different ways using Google Classroom and the live stream in order to make sure that we are able to take attendance with our students and ensure that they are participating with us. Just like in a regular school situation, if there are attendance issues that develop, each school building administration will be working with guidance counselors and psychologists and other administrators to make sure that we are touching base with families and ensuring that our students are participating on a regular basis. We didn't have a real issue with that during the spring. A lot of our students, almost all of our students, were engaged in what we were doing. So I'm hoping that that will be the case as we move forward as well. So now what I'd like to do, I think, nope, we skipped a couple. Assessment and grading. A couple of things came up about assessment and grading. So we are going to be assessing students. These will occur as deemed appropriate by teachers. We're really pushing for teachers to think about the ways that they're assessing students so that they can really gather as much information as they can about where students are and how to meet them there. Assessments may be given on in-person days, they may be given on remote days. We're going to try to maximize the amount of time that we have with students on our in-person days. So we're trying to figure out different ways to make assessment really work for us and work for the students. At this point in time, we are considering following normal grading procedures and practices, but obviously we're consistently looking in that direction to see what's appropriate. But we want to make sure that people know that this is going to be done with a high level of flexibility and care. Obviously, we know that we're still in a very difficult situation. Going back and forth between live instruction and hybrid in a hybrid model can be difficult for students. Being fully remote for some of our students, dealing with a lot of issues that exist within the world, within their own families, within their own selves, is going to be important for us to note. So that flexibility and care is going to be a key point of that. And I've noted here, obviously, we're going to evaluate this for effectiveness throughout the year to make sure that it remains appropriate as we move along. Athletics and extracurricular activities. So as of right now, we will not be holding any activities after school at any level to start the school year. Our general feeling at this point is that we want our students to focus on instruction. We want them to focus on their health. We want them to transition into this new model of schooling, not kind of thinking about other things. And obviously, we're going to be looking at this throughout the month of September. We're looking to get the input of teachers, of parents, of students at all of our levels to see how we can do this and move forward with this really important part of students' lives in the best way possible. Right now, we're kind of following the model of the athletics associations in New York State. Fall sports are currently scheduled to begin on September 21st. So we're kind of following that with all of our extracurriculars as well. And we will be making decisions about that, about when we can start activities. We may decide to do a phase-in of activities where we're looking at maybe some virtual activities first before we're holding students and allowing them after school. But at this point, we are planning that at the end of the school day each day, students will be going home. In addition, all of our buildings are going to be closed after school. We won't be holding community group meetings, anything in our schools, because we want to give our custodial staff the time to make sure that they can clean effectively and make sure that everything is ready for the next day for our students in the safest possible way. This just keeps jumping. All right, so now what I'd like to do is, there were over 250 questions posed within the survey, and I thank all of you for that. I'd like to take some time to address many of those questions. There was a lot of repeats, so we went through and kind of quelled that information, and I want to be able to provide that in an effective way so that those can get answered. We're not able to answer all of those questions, and like I said, many of those questions were very building specific. So we're going to route those questions to the building principals so that they can help address those in more depth during their individual building presentations. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's see. Wow, does not like me today. Okay, so probably one of the biggest questions that was raised was about the ability for people to change their mind in terms of the model that they've chosen. And this is a very difficult question to address because while all of us understand the difficult position that parents are being placed in at this time about making a decision, we are also faced with a lot of difficulty in terms of designing and planning for a school year. So at this point, we are asking parents to commit to a model for the first semester, okay? We're asking you to commit to that. And you can see within that question, the first semester goes from September 10th to January 29th. And I hope that people can understand the complexities that go into the preparation and scheduling of a school year, that if we don't have this decision made in the next couple of days, that we are going to have a real hard time opening on time in an effective way. The other thing that people are asking is, am I able to make a change in my decision? And that's really going to be problematic for a number of reasons. One or two people isn't necessarily a problem. It's when there's changing that's going on back and forth in decent numbers. This is especially significant at our elementary level. This could have a very, very difficult impact on staffing, on class development, and the maintaining of classes. So if we have a number of students who are in the remote learning, who all of a sudden decide to switch into the hybrid learning model and come back to school, there is the good possibility that we may have to collapse a section within the online learning model and bring a teacher back. And then those students would have to be gathered together and grouped together, and potentially your child could have to change teachers. The same way that if we had a situation where we had students in the hybrid changing to an online model, we may get to the point where we need more teachers in the online model, where we would have to collapse a section in the hybrid, in school, in order to provide a teacher for the online model. So I understand where this decision is difficult, but at the same time, I hope people do understand the difficulty on our end as well in terms of building a schedule for our students. And obviously, we're going to do our best in order to make this work and create classes that are balanced and that are best for our students. But if we are in the position where people are switching, this could cause some significant issues that could arise if we allow it. So we are truly asking parents to commit for that first semester, and then we can reevaluate for the second semester, depending upon all of the changes that could happen within the world between now and January, the middle of January. So some information around technology. You should expect to hear from our Director of Technology, Bill Blum, in the coming days. He's going to be providing all the information around being able to obtain Chromebooks for your child. We've received some requests from people who wish to purchase their own technology. If we could provide some specifications on what would work best, he's going to be providing that. He's going to be providing information around support during the school year, technology support. So what supports will be available both in the classroom and for our students that are working remotely. Mrs. Doyle asked me to really drive this point home, that K1 students will not be on a device when they are in school. So K1 students will not be bringing that device back and forth if they're in the hybrid model. So parents, that's important for you to know if you have a kindergartner or a first grader. All of our other levels, we are talking about the ability for students to kind of a BYOD program, or if we're providing you with a Chromebook, to be able to provide that information and provide that piece of technology both at home and in school. So if you do have any questions, once this information comes out, Bill will be providing a way for you to request a Chromebook or multiple Chromebooks if you have multiple children. And we're really looking to be able to support a program where every student has their own device. Switching of cohorts. So obviously we have cohort A is A through L, cohort B is M through Z. Several people have been reaching out to our principals asking about the ability to switch cohorts. And unfortunately, due to the logistics of what we have going on here, the ability to switch cohorts is not going to be available. We are doing our best to provide what we can. But if we start headed down the road of opening this up to being able to switch cohorts, this is just going to be a logistical nightmare. So if there is some highly unusual circumstance that you have going on, please reach out to your building principal and speak to them about it. But please know that from this would have to be something very significant in order for the building principal to consider it. We really are sticking to that A through L, M through Z breakdown from a cohort model. A couple of questions came up about supply lists, because if you're going remote or if you're in the hybrid, supplies may not be necessary, they may be different. So buildings are going to be updating parents very soon if there are any changes needed to those supply lists to make sure that students are prepared and that parents have enough time to make those changes or to not buy things if they're not necessary. We don't want people having to buy items that they don't necessarily need to. Okay. Workbooks and textbooks. So a question came up about, in the remote model, will my child be using workbooks, textbooks? As we begin to finalize all of these logistics, yes, all workbooks, textbooks that are used, that are available in the hybrid model, will be available to our students in the remote model, and we're going to develop a process by which those items will be distributed, okay? So children won't be missing out on the ability to engage in the programs that we have and to have the books that we are using. We will be able to do that, and we will be doing that. A lot of questions came up about mask wearing and social distancing, and our ability to enforce our policies around mask wearing and social distancing. So as with any rule that exists within the school, we're expecting students to abide by it. And wearing a mask and social distancing is going to be no different than that. So our staff members will be addressing students that don't follow the rules, but we need to make sure that we realize that this is going to be done in a developmentally appropriate manner. We're going to be really working with parents to make sure and contacting you if this becomes an issue and we need to work with your child. We understand that wearing a mask is really, really hard to do for a long period of time. So all of our schools are working on good ways to build in mask breaks, to give students that opportunity to take their mask off and to breathe for a little bit without the mask on. But we want to make sure that we're balancing the health and safety of all of our students with the developmental readiness of our students to be in a mask for a full day. So we will be working on that and enforcing at the same time. School start times. The elementary start times may need to be shifted very, very slightly, maybe by a few minutes. We'll be getting that information out to parents, in the coming days, but it will vary. It will be a matter of minutes. It would not be anything significant. But we wanted to make you aware of that. In terms of online delivery platforms, as I've already said, all teachers are going to be using Google Classroom. Once again, we're going to be using Google Meet, but we're also going to be offering Zoom. Zoom offers a number of features, especially for our little ones, our wee ones at K1 especially, and the ability for teachers to use both of those. But we are going to streamline that process. We're going to work with teachers to make sure that parents know exactly where the link is every single day. We want to make sure it's in the same consistent spot so that they don't have to go searching for it. That's going to be important to us, that we provide that consistency as we're building our Google Classrooms and as we're implementing them. Big question that came up: will the fully remote model have a different curriculum than the hybrid model? Absolutely not. We are following the New York State Learning Standards in both of these models. Both models are going to be covering the same curriculum. The teachers that are doing the remote learning will be working closely with the teachers that are doing the hybrid model in order to make sure that we are existing as closely as possible within those two models. It's really just going to be a difference of where you're accessing the information and the instruction. Chorus, band, and phys ed. These are interesting courses that we've been having a lot of discussions around. Our phys ed teachers, our music teachers have been working very, very hard to figure out the best possible way that they can promote and provide their curricula to our students. These, of course, are some higher risk courses in terms of health and safety. The guidelines say for sort of singing, for the playing of brass instruments and instruments that you have to blow into, as well as physical activity where students are engaged in cardiovascular activity, that we really should be operating at a 12-foot social distancing, not a 6-foot. So we are looking at a number of ways to provide these courses to our students, the possibility of changing locations, what kind of things can we do in person versus remote. We're looking at our curriculum in each of these, what's going to be most important and how do we provide it, and looking at some software solutions to be able to provide in our remote ways that promote all of these courses. And in each of these building presentations that are coming up, they're going to be elaborating more on how these will be done at each of the different levels. So if a student is sick, and I put sick in quotation marks for a reason, can they participate in distance learning? We might have students who are actually sick. We all also may have situations where students are put on quarantine, who aren't necessarily, don't have any symptoms, but are told that they can't actually participate in the live instruction going on in school. So can they participate in the distance learning aspect? Of course they can. Obviously, if they are feeling ill, our primary goal would be for them to get better first. But during the time of COVID, during this period of time when we're in these models, we will say that students, if you are in the hybrid model and you can't come to school on your live day, then on both days you can participate in the live streaming and still participate in your class from home, so that way you're not falling behind. Frequency of parent-teacher contact. Obviously in a remote model or in a hybrid model, parents may feel the need to speak with teachers to talk about their child's progress. We are encouraging, just like normal, please continue to stay in contact with your child's teacher through email, through phone, through a scheduled meeting. If you want to speak to them, please do not feel as though you can't do that. We want you to reach out. Our teachers love talking about your children. So please make sure that you're reaching out if you do have questions. Our social emotional needs, obviously very high and important during this time. Our school counselors, our psychologists, our support staff have been working during this time, building models, building plans in order to make sure that they're going to be able to meet the needs of our students. They'll be doing all kinds of assessments as well, formative assessments, meeting with students. We're gonna have in-class lessons, small group meetings, individual sessions are gonna be scheduled in order to make sure that our students are doing well from a social emotional state. If you have any concerns about your child, please reach out to your building. You can contact your administrator, you can contact a counselor, a psychologist, your child's teacher. We are here to work with you to make sure that your child's social emotional needs are being met. Some questions that came up about expectations of parents. Obviously, the younger the child, it gets a little bit harder. Our older children, our older students become a little more self-reliant. But our goal is to create a model that once they kind of get set up, and if there's any assistance in troubleshooting, that once they're on, they really shouldn't need a whole lot of assistance. So we're trying to design and work with the feedback that we received from the spring to design ways and design lessons and our instruction in order to make sure that we need as little assistance as possible for our students during that time. So we did say that this was not necessarily a session that was going to focus on special education. Dr. Urso was going to be working to provide a session on that. But she did ask me to put this one piece in here. She sent it to me before and just said, can you please just let our parents know for our children with IEPs, you can see here, she sent this message along about how instruction is going to be provided for a fully remote option for children with IEPs. As you can see, there's a lot here. And I would ask that if you have questions about instruction related to special education or special education services or needs, Dr. Urso and Christy Guerin and Erin McGee are all very much ready and willing to work with you and to help out in this process. What's going to be viewed during the live stream? Great question. And this is going to vary from class to class and from lesson to lesson. Really depends upon what's being instructed and what's being taught during that time. You may see your teacher. You may see the whiteboard where the teacher is writing and working. You may see a smart board. You may see a presentation similar to this with the teacher speaking over it. Teacher might be using their document camera to show documents or to show specimens or to show could be anything. So this is really it's a hard question to answer. What you won't be seeing is the other students in the class. You're really, the focus is going to be on the instructional piece, on the teacher, and on the instructional method that the teacher is using to get that information across. What's going to happen when teachers are absent? That's a very good question. We are working feverishly. Our HR department is working at top speed to recruit as many substitute teachers as we can. I think right now we have about 160 in our system. But I think one of the most important things that we need to talk about is that we are working on creating and implementing training for these folks. They can't just show up and be expected to understand and know what's going on in our schools. So we are working on providing some training to them on aspects of COVID protocols and how to engage students in remote learning. They need to know how to use Google Classroom, and they need to know how to get the live stream up and running so that our students are there. So these are all pieces that we are thinking about, we are working on, and we do know that there are times when teachers are going to be absent. And we need to be realistic about that and do the best we can to make sure that those classes are staffed with substitute teachers to the best possible extent we can. State testing. So not great news, but at this time, the New York State testing program is still scheduled to take place. I can tell you from my chair, we are fighting this tooth and nail. We have asked that guidance be provided on this of how this could possibly be done, why we're focusing on this at this time. We have conveyed strong opposition to this, and our hope is that the governor, the federal government, the state government, state education department hears us and removes this requirement in the coming weeks so that we don't have to worry about that. So there were a lot of questions. That was the big idea, the big summary of all those. Like I said, the future, most definitely uncertain. We continue to get information on a daily basis from SED, from our Department of Health, from the governor's office. We want to focus that health and safety is the primary driver of what's going on here. We want to make sure that our students and our staff are safe. We're going to continue to monitor, to evaluate, to assess all of the different pieces that are going on here and try to provide the most effective and the most relevant educational experience that we can for all of our students. Contact information. There's a lot of people that you can contact. I am available. My entire curriculum team is available. All of our building principals and assistant principals are available to you. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out so that we can, if you send I can tell you if you send an email to somebody and it's not necessarily the best person to answer that question, they'll forward it on to somebody so that you can get the best answer that you possibly can. And that kind of wraps up. I know it's a lot of information, and I hope that it was helpful and provided you with a better understanding of our thinking around the models that we have. I'm sure that there are lots more questions that need to be addressed in the coming days. So Dr. Glass, I turn it back to you. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Scott. That was an excellent overview. You covered a lot of material in a very succinct amount of time, and I want to thank you for wrapping all the questions you received ahead of time, over 250 of them, and incorporating those questions into this presentation. With that said, I've been scanning and trying to answer as many questions as I can that have come through the chat, and it is a mind-boggling number of questions. So thank you all, everyone. We're going to do our best to get through as many as we can, and I'd like to see if Cheryl would maybe help coordinate moving us through that section.
Yeah, it is a lot. And I just want to say there were some that were specific about health and safety, what happens if someone is test positive on the bus, or what happens if a student gets sick at school. And I would say tune in on Monday. There will be a webinar on health and safety, and we'll cover those then. There are a lot of questions that are very specific to buildings, building level questions. And I might ask that we can postpone some of those as well to the individual school. For instance, at middle school, who's going to be sanitizing the desks? Why are the students moving and not the teachers? And maybe Principal Elder can address those on Thursday night, and same with the other district school level ones. But lots and lots and lots of questions about the remote option and the fully remote option. So a few questions that I'm going to bundle. What is the hard deadline for selecting fully remote? Can it be extended until all of the forums, these information forums are through, because they've been very helpful. Lots of kudos, Mr. Nguyen, for your presentation and how you were able to bring all that information together. Incredibly helpful. And so what's the hard deadline? Can it be extended? Let me just start with those. And what's the percentage so far of students who have opted into hybrid, fully remote learning? Can you share that?
So I believe at this point, and Dr. Glass, I know you're going to have more of that information on probably at the tip of your fingers, but I believe we're right around 300 students across the district. Yes, yeah, that have opted for the full remote model. So that's kind of where we are at this point.
Are they evenly spread across the district, or are they more clustered at certain levels? Can you say?
Doc, I'm going to ask you to.
They're fairly evenly spread. And I'll try to pull them up and give you the latest, but there's the largest percentage by a slight margin is at the high school, but they're ranging between 7.5% and 12%, across the board. It's about 10% so far of folks overall have elected it, just over 300, and they're very evenly distributed, more so than I thought they might be.
Deadline for selecting fully remote, did you say is this week, right?
I would really love to see people make that decision by Friday. I know that we're in a situation where that's challenging. I think if we can get people to do that by Friday, that would be extremely, extremely helpful.
And I would just add that, we would love to give people more time, and these are fair questions to say, well, before all of the sessions and all of the information, wouldn't it be better to give us that opportunity? I agree, and just understand that from the time that we were given this task of reinventing education, over the last number of months, really for us, this is a complete reinvention of our system. And figuring out how to do that within the guidelines, and having, to wait for the guidelines. This is as fast as we could get here. And we're just up against the deadline of the start of school, and as Scott beautifully described. So we find ourselves in this spot, and I would just say this, and this is a general statement that you're going to hear more from us about. We're coming to the realization as we get these more detailed questions, and we're hearing so many specific questions about so many specific aspects of our operation, that we're going to do everything we can to keep your children safe and make this a very safe environment. But it is, just like if you go to the store or, outside or anywhere else, there are going to be limits to it. We can't say it's going to be, perfectly, airtight, safe all the time. You know, there can be situations of exposure, and given that, you know, I think when you're trying to make a decision about you're going fully hybrid or not, I think it's good to bear that in mind. If you're really, really uncomfortable and thinking that, you know, we can create a perfect system, you know, I would love to, but I don't know that I can promise you a perfect system, especially, you know, as we're moving into this for the first time, right? So if you're uncomfortable, you may be wise to really consider, with the most information we can give you by the end of the week, to just, you know, go with that in mind, because I don't want to overpromise. We're going to make it very safe, but there is no perfect safety in this world. And, you know, if it really concerns you, then, you know, you might want to consider fully online. We think both systems will do a great job for your children.
So there were some questions about, so just to clarify, if a student is fully remote, they will be in a different cohort with a different teacher than a hybrid cohort, correct? And who are the teachers in the fully remote option? Are they current Eastchester teachers?
Yes, 100%. And yes, you are correct. At the elementary level, it'll be a teacher from Eastchester, and we're really pushing that it be from that grade level, is going to be doing the instruction for our remote students on that grade level.
Oh, there were some questions about BOCES. What about students in BOCES?
So the high school is working through those details now, but as of right now, it looks like BOCES, our OCED program, our career and technical education programs, will be available.
So if someone opts for fully remote or hybrid, and then at the end of the semester opts to change, that means that they would be changing their teachers?
Depends. That is possible. Yes, it would be possible. Depends upon the state of the entire district at the time. We may be in a position, fingers crossed, that we could all come back, and then we would be moving in that direction, but it is possible with the change of program or model that you could have your child be changing teachers, yes.
Is the state doing any provision for supervision or childcare for essential workers like they did in the spring?
As of right now, no.
And part of the reason for that, it's not that we would desire to do that, but the reason we were able to provide that before was because the governor in his executive order, you know, told schools that they needed to do that. And it isn't that we don't want to provide that, but it has never, there's this notion of what public school funds can be used for. It has to be used for our core mission of educating students. And for us to be able to use it on something else like childcare for essential workers, we have to have that special dispensation, you know, from a governmental authority. Otherwise, we're not legally able to expend school funds to do that. So the minute the governor, you know, grants us that, we'll work to set it up as we have before. But until then, that last governmental order, you know, expired, and we're no longer able to do that. And so it's not that we don't want to, it's that we're not able to legally.
So is it true that except for Waverly, all students will be carrying their own devices to and from school and using their own device? So they will not be shared keyboards and shared devices in the schools?
That is correct. That's the intention.
So every student will have a device that they will work from at home and in the building?
Yes, whether it be their own device that they're going to bring back and forth, or one that we provide that they can bring back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Lots of concern about would like to health and safety seminar to this week, or you have a special speaker or something for that schedule?
I'm sorry, we lost you for a moment, Cheryl.
Oh, can you hear me now?
You froze for a minute. Yes.
I see that I got. Is it possible to change the health and safety meetings, since these are so useful, to this week when parents are trying to make their decisions for their children?
I'm not able to do that because Dr. Collins, who's our school physician, medical director, really needs to be part of that, and, you know, is not available until then. And truly, also, here's the other part of it. This is an area around which there's much confusion. You heard the governor say that we're supposed to do COVID testing. that was not in the guidance, and we did not believe that we were legally able to do that. So we're still resolving that, and we just got Department of Health guidance yesterday that we had been waiting for them, and we're thankful that they've provided it. And so we have to modify our plans based on this revised guidance and make sure we're giving you accurate information. So, Monday is about the soonest I can give you that accurate information. I wish I could move it up, but we just aren't going to be able to do that for those two main reasons.
Lots of concern with in the moments when students are doing the distance learning in the hybrid mode, for instance, about their ability to keep their attention on what's happening, in the synchronous learning moments. So is there any plans for supporting students in learning how to do this, or what kind of support might there be for helping students sustain attention? I'm sure the teacher professional development is happening to help teachers work on that with students, but came up a lot of concerns about the synchronous learning and attention.
Most definitely. So, I mean, that really comes back to engaging lesson design and being able to provide, our teachers with the ability to engage students both that are in front of them and that are at home. And our design model being that we're providing an opportunity for people to design lessons that are engaging remote learning is going to be the key to that. I also think that part of this is going to be work that happens during the beginning of school for when students are in front of their teacher, being able to talk about what that experience looks like from home and working with students to kind of train them into what their responsibilities are and how they can best utilize that time when they are home.
Anyone else see any questions that haven't been asked? I'm trying to keep up, but it's a little tricky.
Can I just say two things that I caught very briefly that I wanted to make sure people saw? Yes, the slides and this recording will be on the website. We'll probably do that tomorrow morning. And there were some questions that had come up whether people will be receiving schedules and teacher assignments next week. Unfortunately, the answer is no. We are still, until we can really work through all those logistics, we're going to have to postpone people getting those assignments till probably the very end of August.
But school doesn't start till September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
There's some questions about at the middle school, high school, day ones and day twos. So each student would have an in-person day one and an in-person day two if they're in the hybrid mode. Is that how you're doing it?
Yes, absolutely. So Monday and Tuesday will both be day one, and Thursday, Friday will both be day two. So everybody gets a day one and a day two in the cycle. Mm-hmm.
There was a question that came up about, can the other school leaders, principals put together presentations like Mr. Elder did? Yes, absolutely. We will have a session like this for every school, and each of them, each principal will put something together either for the presentation or hopefully even prior to the presentation. Like they're also gathering information and questions so that they have the best information for you. So that'll be following. Those will be scheduled shortly.
Is there anything more you can say about the decision in the hybrid model to do Wednesdays fully at home? There were some questions early on about that. What about having the cohorts alternate, that Wednesday? So that question, and along with that, how are you doing on the Mondays that are holidays or the Fridays that are half days? How are you going to make those up for students who have school on those days?
Yeah, so the weeks that that there is a day that, so that let's say Monday is a holiday, we're going to switch that to be Wednesday, so that each, if there's a day that we can replace Wednesday with, we will be doing that. In terms of the design of Wednesday, we are putting our teachers in a really challenging place. They're essentially creating 3 different sets of lessons across the board for students that are in front of them, students that are hybrid, students that are potentially home. So to start the school year, we've designed this model to provide them a solid amount of time where they can collaborate with their peers, where they can design effective and thorough lessons that are going to meet the needs of our students. So, obviously with the entire model, this is going to be something that we continue to monitor and continue to look at. But this is an important piece of the providing truly effective instruction in multiple different platforms. I think that is the driving reason behind the Wednesday.
Do you have any plans for a mechanism for providing feedback and asking questions once school's in session?
That's going to be critical. And it's going to be critical at every level, every building. So that is something that we are planning. We haven't gotten to the fine details of what that's going to look like and how it's going to be done, but I think that needs to be an opportunity for people to submit questions, to get answers, to provide feedback, and give us kind of, provide the circular feedback model of really being able to examine all of that. I think student feedback is critical also. So that will be something we'll be looking to gather.
Okay. Any other questions that anyone else has noticed that you want to get out there?
Related to the last question, I think some parents earlier asked about if there were resources available for parents to become more familiar with Google Classroom. Parents are saying they need some training as well.
Yes, 100%. I'm going to be able to, I would say within the next week, we will begin to provide those to parents. We may even create a resources webpage where parents can go and access, that students can go and access. We've been doing a lot of work with our teachers, but I think this is a good time to note that parents are going to need that support as well. So yes, that will be forthcoming.
Someone said, can we ask the teachers what they would like parents to do in order to make this year go better?
Yes, I think that's a great question. 100%.
Maybe we can work with the PTAs to get that kind of information sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Parents can support their children at home in different ways, given the new model. Will students who are learning remote, when they're on the hybrid model and they're learning from home and they're synchronously linked into the class, are they going to have opportunities to ask questions and interact with the teacher? I know they're not going to be seeing the students, but will they be able to ask questions?
No, not at this time. To start the year, we're really looking at it only being an opportunity for them to view what's going on in the classroom, to hear what's going on in the classroom, for a teacher to have to be able to monitor the students in front of them and monitor a chat. I mean, you can see in this alone how difficult that would be. So, no, that won't be taking place. But we encourage our students to be good students and write down their questions, that when they're in front of their teacher the next day, that they have that opportunity to address anything that they may not fully understand. So
for fully remote students, 7th grade and above, will have access to foreign language?
Yeah.
And how are in fully remote students in high school, what about the specialized high school classes? Should those questions be, will Dr. Capuano be addressing those questions?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How fully remote will look for high school specialized classes?
Yes, most definitely.
Great, thank you. Is there any change in homework policy or procedures expected with this new setup?
So, I mean, homework, like any time, is going to be, it's teacher dependent. But we are asking teachers to truly think about the homework assignments that they're assigning. That, they really need to be designed to further learning. that we're trying to move away from busy work assignments. We're trying to move away from assignments that are really just given for the purpose of being given. And we're trying to ask teachers to really think about the time commitment of their assignments. That students at the secondary level have 9 teachers a day. And if each teacher is giving, a certain amount of homework, that really compounds very quickly. So that's all being discussed at each of the different buildings.
Yeah, I think that's linked up with the concern of how many hours students will be spending in front of screens.
Right.
So at the elementary level, will they be doing their assignments where before they might have written something, handwritten? Are they going to be doing more assignments on the computer?
It depends upon the level. I mean, really, we need to make sure that we're developmentally appropriate, like Mrs. Doyle really had me push and say, K1, when they're with their teacher, we're focused on that time, that they are having the K1 experience, which typically doesn't involve a lot of screen time. So we want to really promote that. Will there be a shift at the different levels? I would say most likely that we'll see some kind of increase, but I think teachers are going to be very cognizant of the amount of time that kids are spending in front of screens already, to not, compound upon that to the extent that they possibly can.
Just want to quickly clarify something. So if students are in the hybrid mode and they are currently on one of their home days, right? So they are in cohort A, and so it's Tuesday, so they're at home. They cannot ask questions during the live synchronous sessions. However, students who are fully remote and working with their teachers fully remote will be able to interact and ask questions of their teacher, correct?
At the elementary level, yes.
At the elementary level.
Because they have a completely separate teacher that they're working with, yes.
Okay. And tests for fully remote students, all of the tests and assessments, of course, will have to be delivered remotely.
Correct. So it'll be a different kind of way of assessing students to make sure that we're able to assess what it is that we're trying to truly understand about what they know.
How are you preparing for any technology glitches, potential technology problems with the load?
We're working our best. We're trying to make sure that our system and our structures are up to date and that they are, in the best possible shape that they can, that our devices are what they are, intended to be. Are there going to be glitches? Always. I mean, just today, we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to have this session because of a situation that happened not on our campus, but happened at the Regional Information Center. So we're trying to plan for all those different contingencies and see if we have backup plans to work with students. But we need to kind of take that on a day-by-day, situation-by-situation basis. But I know Bill Blum and his team are gearing up and are ready to support parents and kids and teachers in any way that they can each day.
Any other questions that people are seeing that you want to?
There was one that came up that hadn't occurred to me per se, was that within a family, can parents choose different options for their different children? If some want to go one child fully remote and one wants to go hybrid, that's certainly an option, correct?
Yes, 100%.
And I assume at the Health and Safety Forum, they'll be discussing specifications for acceptable masks and so forth. And one of the other questions that came up in a few was whether teachers will be using clear masks so that it may be easier to either see what they're saying by their mouths moving rather than, but also it may be easier to hear them.
So that's always an option if a teacher wanted to use one of those. I don't know if any of you have tried to use one of those, but they are they're pretty terrible. The plastic piece in front of your mouth is really bad,
Okay.
and it doesn't really provide as much of what you can see as you think it would. So that's an individual teacher's discretion if they choose to do that. I know some of our service providers, are going to be wearing face shields, when working with students in different ways. So, but, I think probably what we're going to see most likely are full masks.
Will teachers be able to use mics, headsets or mics or something so that students who are learning remotely that day can hear the teachers?
So we're testing that out now to see how the audio is going to go with our with the webcams that we have, and we'll see what we're able to do in each of those classrooms.
I just saw a teacher chime in and say that she did order clear masks. They get quickly fogged and were difficult to breathe in and see through. So thank you. Testament from Mrs. Lavecchio.
Yep.
There were some questions earlier also related, and I'm not sure exactly if they fall here, but it related to what kind of things would trigger going from green to yellow to red, and do you envision that being by building, by cohort? So is it possible that someone gets test positive in cohort A, and cohort A has to close for the high school, but other groups can remain open, or do we know what that's going to look like?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to determine as part of the procedure that's recommended by the Department of Health. Generally we look at this as a district-wide thing, but it could be a school-wide thing, but what we find is that because, we're not a very large district, and we're a tight community, that if something affects one building, that it would cause a closure in one building, it's probably going to have some impact because of siblings and others, throughout the districts. It's more likely we would not close one building. However, it is possible that for some conditions, one or another, we might just, maybe just one building goes remote for a day or two or a week or whatever it needs to be. It's possible. More likely going to be a whole district decision. Conditions too that are, I did get a question that spins off of this one about, what does it take to go into the green zone? Because by some community metrics, our infection rates are low enough that we could be in the green zone, but for the density of our students right now, that makes it difficult for us to get into that green zone. It's going to be difficult to get into that green zone until the general conditions out there improve, because it's hard to reduce the density enough to meet the guidelines. The guidelines are basically saying, 6 feet of distance and masks at all times. And in order to do that, you just need so much more square footage that it's going to be tough to do. So it looks like it's a bigger leap for us to get from yellow to green right now because of that. Now, if the interpretation changes or the guidelines change, then we maybe could get into green. It's going to be tough to get into green until there's some change in the larger picture.
Anything else that is pressing on people? I'm looking.
There was one question that came up that is about why are at the secondary level of the students moving and not the teachers? And I don't know if Scott, you having been a middle school principal at one time, the answer is, and you've worked a lot with Principal Elder on this. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and then also at secondary at the high school where it's even different than at the middle school. But if you'd elaborate, I'd love it.
Sure. So really, it comes down to the idea of scheduling and cohorting. And when you look at a high school, there's really, especially a high school like ours, we've designed our high school to be a place, and our middle school, where we're kind of individualizing programs for students. We're not cohorting necessarily whole groups of kids and moving them from one place to another. So high school students, every period, the whole building mixes. There's not a situation where there's like a whole group of students that are following the same schedule where we could just move that class from class to class. So that would be it would be impossible at a high school level. At the middle school level, we do have teams. So the teaming concept would tend to lend itself a little bit more. But what I can tell you is that we have students within teams that don't necessarily follow that cohort. Especially, you know, we look at our E&L students, our special education students. Students are cross-teamed and cross-cohorted for all of their special area classes, for all of their foreign language classes. At the 8th grade level, they're, you know, cross-grouped for things like earth science and for algebra. So when Principal Elder, I can tell you, spent an exorbitant amount of time. He came into this saying, I want to try and cohort kids as much as possible. And when we got down to the bottom of really diving into this, we just came to the realization that students need to move, and that moving teachers really just didn't work. At the elementary level, obviously, it's much easier. Students are with their core teacher for a good portion of the day, and it made sense to do that. But at the middle school and high school, I can tell you that was looked at nauseum for really trying to make that work as best as possible. But it just did not pan out in the way that we originally kind of imagined.
So in the middle school, I mean, Mr. Elder will address some of this on Thursday, and his presentation, which we received, as a middle school parent, I received it today, was excellent, incredibly thorough, including measurements of hallways. Yep. And talking about staggering the times that students are moving, so that red 7 will move first and then red blue. But students then will be in their same cohort for all of their academic classes, but might be with different students in their specials. Is that what you're saying?
So that's something that he was trying to work through. Now remember, at 7th and 8th grade, foreign language is a mixture. So that's not necessarily going to work, you know, every single period all the way through. So he'll explain it more on Thursday, but he's really trying to do the best that he can with that model.
Yeah, so everyone should look forward to hearing, you know, I think at the principal level, they're so engrossed in their individual building, and you'll get lots more details when the principals set up these seminars for each individual building. So those are incredibly useful. Thank you. Anyone else?
There seem to be a series of questions that keep coming up regarding remote or hybrid students on remote days who are not allowed to ask questions during class time. I just want to make sure we're all clear, or we're on the same page, I guess. I think you said that they will have office hours each day with teachers, and Wednesdays, like additional office hours where they can interact with teachers and ask their questions. Is that accurate?
So that's in the remote model. That's in the level red.
Okay.
Where there would be the office hours. So during the hybrid model in level yellow, no, they wouldn't necessarily have office hours each day, but those students would be seeing their teacher the next day in class and be able to have their questions addressed then.
What about fully remote students? They're only going to be able to ask on Wednesday then in the yellow model?
Correct. They always have the ability to email the teacher, but on Wednesday is really the focus for the fully remote.
Okay, good. I'm glad you clarified, because that helped me, but hopefully it helps some of the parents out in the audience as well.
Sure.
There were some questions, follow-up questions about when the other school sessions are going to be held, and I believe they haven't been scheduled yet, and people should continue to check back onto the website. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if you go to our news website and you go to the drop-down menu for the district, there's a whole page for COVID, and there are different pages within that page, and one is about these sessions. So they are continually being updated with links where you can ask questions, but also dates and times for future sessions.
Yes, and with that, we're an hour and a half in now, and I think this is probably a good time to end the session. First of all, I want to begin by thanking Scott. Tremendous presentation, Scott, and I have to tell you that Scott and everybody in the district has worked incredibly hard on this, and I hope you've seen some evidence of really diligent work and thinking. and I would like to thank all of our panelists as well. I'd like to thank our teachers who have been great partners in this. Everybody in the district has really just pulled together on this. Have to thank our community as well, because you've been very patient with us. You've given us great input and feedback. And, you know, we do all this together. It's a partnership, and we want to really, you know, let you know that there are going to be compromises with this that you see, no matter what, no matter how you look at this. I think we would all agree that we might not choose this, right? This is something we're dealing with. It's a large issue that is in front of us, that we're doing the best we can with what's there. And every choice we make, we may love elements of it and we may really not like elements of it. So I hope, you know, I just like to keep that in front of everyone. So the district is not promoting, you know, many of these steps we're taking. The district is trying to do the best with an eye on quality education. And that's what Scott started and led with. And there will be some elements that, you know, we don't love. But I think if we can keep that in mind and keep our perspective, it helps us all at a difficult time. I want to remind everybody too that we do have additional sessions that will be scheduled and are scheduled. So we're looking to reschedule the transportation session for later this week. We'll get that to you shortly. All the questions that we fielded from that are being put up as Q&As over the next day or two. So, you know, we have a robust Q&A session building. This presentation that Scott did will be posted there under the teaching and learning portion of the Q&A session, and you'll be able to reference not only the video, but just the slides if it's easier for you. And so then on Thursday night at 7 p.m., the middle school session, Monday at 7 p.m., that's been adjusted now. Monday, 7 p.m. will be the health procedures session. And then we will, by the end of this week, have scheduled, you know, the rest of the school sessions. We will have 4 more of those. So we're doing our best, and we'll schedule more if we need to. We'll keep this coming. And again, I want to drive you to our website. I know our previous website, you know, you couldn't always find everything, but on our new website, we've really tried to organize it, especially around this. So if you're ever wanting for information, please go there. Just go to the main page and you'll see the COVID tab. When you click that, you'll find everything. We're trying to make this one-stop shopping for you. And we know that there's a lot of information. It's just, you need a lot of information. We're trying to just put it all there in a way that you can find it without searching too much. So thank you for your patience with that. I think we're going to call it a session. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. And we wish you safety and health and success in all your endeavors. Thank you very much and have a great evening.